What's up, people? Mr. B again, and today we want to talk about this Garvey pod. Now, on the weekend of January 17th here, we were greeted with the news that Joe Biden, in one of his final acts as president of the United States, the 46th president, had issued a posthumous pardon to Jamaica's national hero, uh, Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Let me give him his title, the Right Excellent Marcus Mosiah Garvey, national hero. Now, a lot of Jamaicans in particular have greeted this news with skepticism, even deriding the development, as if to say, is according to some, this no mean nothing, or it too late. And unless you understand the impact, the whole business of having a criminal charge against a family, whether alive or deceased, is, it kind of make you wonder as to the veracity of those comments, if you will. But we live in a society where people are free to say anything. And of course, there are the misinformed and or miseducated. And so I want to use this discussion to kind of shed some light. Now, Marcus Garvey is without doubt one of the most significant public figures in the black space, despite the factor of this whole event relating to Marcus Garvey, his imprisonment taking place some 103 years ago. The impact of Garvey on the world is beyond debate. Now, essentially, Garvey took his program to the United States, where he established a branch of the UNIA, the Universal Negro Improvement Association, which essentially became a mass movement with millions of followers worldwide. So the UNIA wasn't just a Jamaica or an American operation. It was a global operation. And of course, Garvey at the time would come into contact with William Du Bois, who is, another well-known figure in American social and the social and political sphere. And of course, the Marcus Garvey's UNIA clashed with a similar group that was led by Du Bois. That group, he was a leading figure, William Du Bois, in the Niagara movement, and he was co-founder at the time of the NAACP. And the focus of this Niagara movement, which Du Bois led, was on integration, civil rights, and higher education for African Americans. He, through the Niagara movement, advocated for the talented tenth, which was an idea that small, educated elite of Black people would lead the fight for racial equality. He also believed that the fight for civil rights and equality needed to happen within the United States and not through migration. Of course, Garvey's UNIA was focused on the overall development of people of color, Black people, and central to that was the move to bring Black people back to Africa. And so the two groups basically butted heads, and of course there was no love lost between them. Du Bois criticized Garvey's leadership style and his approach. He called him a demagogue. He accused him of exploiting Black people and their struggles for his own personal gain. And he famously described Garvey at the time as the most dangerous enemy of the Negro race in America and the world. Of course, Garvey is a man noted to be not short on his own arguments, and he himself argued that Du Bois was a pawn of the white interest in America and an elitist who was disconnected from the masses of Black people. Garvey also stated that Du Bois harbored disdain for him due to Garvey's darker skin, calling him light-skinned Negro with a white heart. Of course, their public exchanges became vitriolic, and both men openly attacked each other in speeches and publications. So, as I said, Garvey envisioned Africa as the ultimate homeland for Black people worldwide, and he sought to rebuild African nations as centers of Black power and Black pride. Now, of course, Garvey is popular in America, and that popularity is spreading around the globe. In the American space, Garvey was an enemy of certain interests in the United States of America, and so it was against this background that when Garvey, is floating this idea, this concept of Black economic power, and he essentially, floated this investment vehicle in the Black Star Line. According to researchers, Garvey's movement was infiltrated rather by some of these same Black Americans who really never saw Garvey. They saw him as an enemy, and it led to the claims against him that the Black Star Line enterprise was a fraud, and that because he used the mail system to send out the correspondence, the government of the day charged him for mail fraud. Now, those charges were raised against him, and he was convicted in 1923. He was out on bail for a little bit, and then eventually they sent him to prison. He served, I think it was 2.5 or nearly 3 years of the sentence. And in 1927, the then President Calvin Coolidge commuted his sentence and deported him back to Jamaica. Now, that just to give you the kind of a background. The arguments are that the trial was a sham, that the charges were raised against him were, cooked up charges, and Garvey never helped himself by providing his own defense. He argued his case in front of the American courts, and as a result, the general view was that was never going to work for him. And so in 1923, he was convicted, sent to prison. He served 2 years before being deported. So he was actually commuted to prison in 1925. And after 2 years in prison, Coolidge, as I said, commuted his sentence, and they deported him back to Jamaica in 1927. Now, the arguments are that as far as the trial was concerned, the trial was racial and it had tremendous political bias. Garvey's radical views on Black empowerment and criticisms of systemic racism made him a target for powerful, influential, powerful institutions, including the United States government. Edgar Hoover, who then was a young official in the FBI, sought ways to discredit Garvey and his movement. Hoover recruited undercover agents to infiltrate the UNIA. Some argue that the evidence presented at the trial was insufficient to justify a conviction, and the use of the SS Phyllis Wheatley image, for example, was not fraudulent but aspirational, as the Black Star Line was in negotiations to acquire the ship. So he never, all of this, was again cooked up. Now the claim to was the jury and the judge was hostile. The trial was held in a predominantly white court in New York, which critics argue would have been predisposed against Garvey due to racial prejudice. The judge and the jury may have been unsympathetic to Garvey's Pan-African ideals and his vision of Black economic independence. And as I said before, his decision to represent himself didn't swing in his favor. Now, from a historical perspective, again, many scholars believe, and myself, that Garvey's conviction was part of a broader effort to suppress his influence and dismantle the UNI. His movement had attracted millions and millions of supporters, and so when this posed a challenge to the existing racial and political hierarchies in America, and of course, in this context, the trial was seen as politically motivated. Garvey, nonetheless, was a trailblazer in advocating for the dignity and rights of Black people worldwide at a time when systemic racism and colonial oppression was widespread. He instituted Pride in African Heritage, famously promoting the idea that Black is beautiful long before the whole civil rights era adopted and broadened its popularity. And of course, his Universal Negro Improvement Association became one of the largest global movements of its time, with millions of followers across America, Africa, the Caribbean, and including even South America. Garvey is considered the father of Pan-Africanism, or a father of Pan-Africanism, and the belief in the political and economic unity of African people worldwide. His vision of a united Africa as a homeland for all people of African descent inspired future leaders like Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana and Jomo Kenyatta of Kenya in their own struggles for African independence. Needless to say, his promotion of economic independence for Black people, through which he again was in the midst of establishing the Black Star Line, which was aimed at building independent Black economy. Although the Black Star Line faced challenges, its ambition inspired countless movements promoting Black entrepreneurship and cooperative economics. And of course, Garvey celebrated African heritage, encouraging Jamaicans and other Black people to reject the colonial mindset that devalued their culture. Garvey is also credited with sowing the seeds of cultural nationalism in Jamaica, laying the foundation for the country's independence in 1962. And so, again, I just want to put this material out there. Now, for those people who are talking about exoneration. Now, I moved to the United States in 2008, 2009, settled in 2009. And from the day I landed here, this whole talk about, a pardon for Garvey has been going the rounds, exoneration, pardon, and people use the terms interchangeably. Now, the truth be told, Garvey was sentenced to prison and in 1923, 102 years ago. To be exonerated, an exoneration of those charges can only come through the courts. And as a person who have lived in this country for nearly 20 years now, I can tell you, it's going to be a very, very cold day in hell when that happens, the way how the courts in America is structured. And so for those who don't understand that, exoneration refers to clearing somebody's name, of clearing them of blame or legal liability, particularly in a criminal context. In most legal systems, only the courts, as I said before, have the authority to deliver a formal exoneration because it involves a judicial determination that someone was wrongfully convicted or charged. And this is grounded in due process and the rule of law. The courts therefore have that jurisdictional role. And I don't see that happening in America anytime soon. So from a political perspective, the political system have the pardon rule. And this bid to pardon in terms of getting the wheels moving, this Garvey of this charge was the 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 low-hanging fruit. Keep in mind that Barack Obama had the opportunity to do this, and he never did anything about it, right? Biden took it on himself to step over almost 100 years of presidential political system in America and did what his predecessors never did. And so, as a black man, me start with that. In my view, the wheels have started to turn. I had a little conversation briefly with Dr. Julius Garvey on the weekend at the book fair at Miramar, and I know because at the time he wasn't even aware that this was in the works. But the people of influence within the black community, within the political power base here in America, continued the lobbying efforts, and Joe Biden finally took the decision as it's one of his last acts, and he did it. And for that, me personally, as a black man, as a Jamaican, me grateful. As a man who, in my own way, have been developing my own scholarship on Garvey, I am gratified that the wheels have been now put in motion, and we can press along for a final exoneration. But again, I am prepared to work with this because this is a start. It is a victory for the Garvey family. And to those people who believe that Garvey wouldn't want to be pardoned, I will say to you, you're talking a pile of crap, right? Garvey is Jamaica's national hero. I would have rather than exoneration, yes, but I know that it's not going to come. And so that the Biden administration could take this on. For that, I'm grateful. Let me hear what I want to think. If you don't like the video, hit the like button and share this, because we're trying to inform and educate people as to the importance of things, right? We need to recognize, Garvey is an inspiration to all of us. His famous quote, emancipate yourself from mental slavery, became a rallying cry for freedom. It inspired cultural icons like the great Robert Nesta Marley, himself, in my mind, another national hero of Jamaica, who incorporated the line into his globally recognized song, Redemption Song. Garvey's influence extends beyond Jamaica. It inspired civil rights leaders like the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It inspired Malcolm X and movements like Rastafari, which honors him as a prophet. And so Garvey, in my mind, is a symbol of resistance and resilience. And despite facing racism in the 1920s, long before the civil rights movement scored any political and social victories, Garvey was active in a space like that. Despite facing political persecution and eventual imprisonment, Garvey's unwavering dedication to the upliftment of Black people has made him a symbol of resilience and hope. And of course, even after he was deported to Jamaica, he continued his advocacy back in the island and elsewhere, showcasing his steadfast commitment to his ideas. As far as I'm concerned, Garvey is my premier national hero on the Jamaica National Heroes roster. And so for those who wants to, talk against the exoneration, not upon you. But I hope this little video is serves the purpose that I intended it into bringing some education to Jamaicans on the subject. So, while the conviction has not been overturned, there still calls for his exoneration. Many view Garvey as a victim of systemic racism and political persecution. And I know that the efforts to clear his name continue. If you like the video, hit the like button, share, and again, may I ask you to subscribe to the channel so we can continue the education. Big respect.